What's up, everyone? Film versus analytics. We are back with another episode. I'm Brett Whitefield, your host. I am the COO of FantasyPoints.com, and I am the film guy. I'm going to be joined by Scott Barrett, the CEO of Fantasy Points, who is the analytics guy. And we're going to go toe to toe on all your favorite prospects leading up to the draft. Today, we are breaking down Drake Maye. What's up, my friend? Scott, how are you, sir?
What's up, Brett?
Yeah, we're breaking down Drake Maye today. Another quarterback. This is the third of the top four here. So, how you feeling about Drake Maye? I know analytics and quarterbacks are tough when translating from college to the pro game, especially a guy like Drake coming from the North Carolina offense. I know he lost his head coach Phil Longo after his sophomore year. What stands out to you, my dude?
Yeah, again, I'm really a nihilist when it comes to using analytics to project college prospect to the pros. When it comes to the quarterback position, again, nothing is really all that predictive. But I did digging into the numbers. You do immediately come away with the realization that his 2023 season was significantly worse than his 2022 season, which was pretty great. An SIS stat was that I'm stealing this from Fantasy Cash on Twitter. Um, Drake Maye's on target rate fell from 75% to 67%, basically CJ Stroud levels to Anthony Richardson levels.
Ooh.
Um, uh, he was like good last year, like in comparison to all Power Five quarterbacks, but easily the worst of the big four quarterbacks in the class. You can kind of explain that away due to a poor supporting cast. You had Josh Downs, who went in round three. Devontae Walker is projected to go in round three. Um, Kind of hinting at that is he gains the most ground of any quarterback by adjusted passer rating, which is when you swap out touchdown percentage with big time throw percentage and interception percentage with turnover worthy throw percentage. I keep talking about pressure to sack. That really is one of the stickiest, most predictive stats we have for quarterbacks, and it is a bit of a concern. He was below average in both seasons. Something that's interesting is he really struggled throwing to his right. According to Football Insights on Twitter, 44% of his interceptions were thrown to the right. And then if you look at like a heat map area of the field where he was throwing to, it's like green, green, and then to the right is super red. I don't know. That's just like interesting to me. Like, is he a Zoolander? The guy can't turn to his right. I don't know. That's something I'm hoping you and your film expertise can help me out with. But really, like the big thing here is again, I'm a nihilist. If I were to use a model, it would basically just be projected draft capital plus rushing upside. And in that sense, you have to like Drake Maye because projected top three pick, very underrated Konami code upside. Over the last two seasons, he averaged 57 rushing yards per game and 9.4 rushing fantasy points per game. That's not quite Lamar, Hurts, Kyler, Jaden levels, but it's like right there behind them in that next at the top of the next tier. So again, like assuming that projected draft capital is on point, I guess I have to like him. But at this point, your opinion might matter more to me than industry consensus. In fact, it does. I'll be honest with you. So
Yeah, so I mean, the thing with Drake, everything you just said with the numbers, and I've kind of canvassed numbers myself, because while I am a film guy, I do like the aid of some crucial data points. But everything you just said, the film backs it up, right? So 2022 tape was much better than the 23 tape. That is for sure. The rushing upside, Scott, that's the only thing I'm not sure how much of it he has. Like, it reminds me of like a Sam Howell situation where Sam was athletic in comparison to college football. So Sam Howell, I'm doing the helmet scouting thing. I get it. But he had like 1,000-yard rushing season in that uniform. He's not a great runner in the NFL. I do think Drake has more upside than that. I'm just simply pointing out. I don't think you're going to get like a 700-800-yard rushing season from him. It's going to be a little bit more move the chains via scrambling rather than design QB stuff. But let's dive into like Drake in the film. What I see, pros and cons, right? Pros, arm talent. The dude can make every throw. He can attack all levels of the field. He can fit the ball into those tight windows, right? He can beat coverages with his arm. All of that is true for Drake Maye. I think that's when you watch the tape, that's the first thing that stands out is like, wow, this guy has a legit NFL arm. No doubt about that. I also think he's a very creative thrower, right? So he has the ability to change his arm slot, change his mechanics based on the circumstances. One thing that's really he kind of has an interesting throwing motion, but one thing he does really well is when he's under pressure or when he's scrambling, he can actually change that throwing motion to fit the need to get the ball out quicker if he needs to. I think that's a really cool trait of his. I mean, he's got the playmaker gene, and that's like all of Drake May's big plays are him making, making something happen. It's him, scrambling out of the pocket, avoiding pressure, extending plays with his legs. He can either move the chains with his feet, like I previously mentioned, or he does a really good job of keeping his eyes downfield and delivering the football. I think that's probably the three things you're really hanging your head on with Drake Maye, what's kind of catapulted him into the conversation as one of these top guys. Now, listen, this is a really good quarterback class. That's no surprise to anybody listening, but you put Drake Maye in a different class, say like the 2022 class. He's easily the QB1 in that class. For me, probably closer to QB4. He does have some concerns, but I don't know. I I think he's a really good prospect despite all of that. So he's still a top 15 player for me on my big board, and I think he's a fine quarterback prospect. Um,
Yeah. So that's definitely not what I wanted to hear. Uh, would have much preferred you to say, yeah, top three overall pick. He's awesome.
he still
He
might be.
is a
I'm talking for me. That's my
no.
evaluation of him.
I mean, he's probably going to go top three. I feel like when Washington traded away Sam Howell, that was basically them saying we're going to take Drake May because they're best friends in real life. So that would have
Yeah.
been like an awkward situation. Um, and so he's going to get that draft capital, I'm pretty sure. And so it's really just a matter of how much do I want to trust you versus trust the NFL decision makers. Um,
Well,
what you
hold
said,
on. Let me stop you real quick, and then hold your thoughts. Remember that. I do think, and I haven't even got to the cons list yet, by the way, but I do think um, there's a world where, like, if I'm a GM and I'm picking number 2, number 3, number 4 overall, and I need a quarterback, I'm still taking Drake Maye. Like, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying the NFL is wrong for doing that. For me, the order does matter. You know the order in which I have these quarterbacks, but ultimately, like if you need a quarterback and you're at the top of the draft, take Drake Maye. He's a good player. He's a good prospect. That's how valuable quarterback is. So even though he's a top 15 player for me, quarterback is that important. You still got to take the swing on him. So I don't think the NFL is wrong for doing that. By the way,
but he's
Oh,
your QB4 in the class.
yes.
Okay. And, wasn't great to hear that you're not super sold on his rushing upside at the next level. Do you think he's on like where would you put him on the Daniel Jones spectrum?
I think Daniel Jones is probably a smidge more explosive, but Drake May has that prototype frame though, where you don't
Right.
really worry about Drake running the ball because he is 6'4", 6'5", 225 pounds. He's a bigger guy. So I just don't think you're going to design quarterback touches for him. This isn't Josh Allen in Buffalo where, he's not the best athlete, but they still design touches for him. I think May is probably more um he's more just going to be scramble guy, and there's going to be years where that fluctuates. I think he'll be a red zone threat to run the ball in the end zone for sure, which I'm sure you're delighted to hear. Um, maybe I can convince you a little more if we talk about his cons though, right? So all the issues I have with Caleb Williams, Scott, are there for me with Drake May as well. And he's just a little bit lesser of a playmaker than Caleb Williams. So the high end traits are there, and so are the concerns. But for Drake May, he plays off schedule way too much, and he invites pressure into his life, and he kind of gets panicky when things break down. When that first read isn't there, he definitely gets panicky. I don't. I really, really value quarterbacks that can run the offense the way it's supposed to be run and play on schedule. I think the best quarterbacks in the NFL are elite at that. So you talk about Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert. I'm talking about the new breed of guy that come into the NFL. Those dudes are all elite at running the offense, playing on schedule. They also have the creative playmaking ability, but you know, being confident with what they're seeing pre and post snap is huge to me. May's also an inconsistent thrower of the football. Like his mechanics aren't consistent. He's inaccurate, and the ball location, even when he is completing the passes, is not great. leaves a lot of balls on back shoulders. So when you put up that heat map earlier of him missing throws to his right, I mean, you see that all over his tape, right? So it's sometimes it's a footwork issue. He's got that interesting throwing motion I already mentioned. I think those are both problematic. Translating, down for down consistency, I think could be an issue for him at the NFL level. It was an issue for him last year. That gunslinger mindset too. Like he has a lot of turnovers because of that, where he thinks I'm the baddest dude on the field. I'm going to put the ball where I want to, and sometimes he doesn't put the ball where he wants to, and it gets picked off. But ultimately, I think the physical traits and the what he does well outweighs the bad, but the concerns are definitely valid in my opinion, and they're significant.
What about his issues I cited about him throwing to the right? Do you think there's anything there, or it's just variance and randomness to the
What
data?
was that his last 2 years starting combined
I believe that was his career. Yeah,
career? Yeah, so Josh Downs aligned on the left a little bit more. I think that could be a thing. I don't know.
I
You know,
heard a
I
rumor that the Jamar Chase drops issues. Remember in training camp his
yeah,
rookie season was because they discovered that like all of his drops came from when he was catching passes turning one way, whether he's like turning to his left or his right. And they found out he had like bad vision in one eye. And so they just stopped targeting him on that way. I don't
really.
know. That was just a rumor I heard. I have no idea if that's true or not. So I'm just like, does he have less than perfect vision in his right eye or something like that? I'm sure it's nothing though.
Yeah, so if I had to guess, Scott, like we're looking at a guy. I mentioned the inconsistent throwing mechanics, right? Footwork, his base isn't always connected to his upper half. The throwing motion's weird. I would guess because he's a right-handed quarterback, typically they throw better to the right side of the field. Like
Right.
McCarthy notoriously misses to the left, right? But maybe it's a because he does have that lackadaisical footwork. Maybe he's a little less intentional about getting set when he's throwing to the right. And then, and when he's throwing to the left, he kind of does a good job making sure he's resetting those feet and getting lined up with his target. That would be my guess because you do see the misses on tape. I guess I didn't realize they were all to the right side of the field though. That's kind of funny. Where we landed on
Yes.
this, Scott. I know
Yeah.
fantasy wise, you said you're going to default to me, but ultimately, like, say he goes second overall, where are you putting him in the draft in your rankings?
I mean, it's hard to argue against 104. Like that ADP feels right, but it's also I would rather trade down and get your QB1 who's still available or chase one of these wide receivers or tight ends I really like.
Do you realize we've suggested everyone trades down from every pick so far?
No, not from the did we do that for the Harrison pick?
Oh, probably not Harrison, but I think
Yeah.
the other 2, the Daniel or no, it was just Caleb. Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe it was we were trading down for Caleb Williams to get Jaden Daniels, and then now we're gonna trade down for May to get McCarthy. So, um, I like it
Well, I
though.
mean, that's the thing is like that's where the value is, right? Like May isn't multiple tiers above JJ McCarthy or
Correct.
Brock Bowers in a tight end premium league.
Yeah. Oh, I got a comp I wanna throw at you. Tell me if you love this or hate this. And this is a style comp. I don't do ceiling floor. I'll actually throw 2 names at you because I'm gonna steal one from producer Trey, but the first one is Carson Wentz, Scott. What do you feel when you hear that? Carson Wentz.
Yeah, not great. One awesome season, and, and then his team wins the Super Bowl without him.
Yeah.
And then I don't know, bottom five quarterback play from there on out.
When I watch Drake Maye, I just see a similar style. Now, I'm like I said, I don't do ceiling floor. I think Drake is probably a little bit cleaner of a prospect for me than Wentz was coming out. Um, I don't like Wentz had really inconsistent throwing issues, where I don't think May's inconsistencies are quite that bad. Now, Wentz was the second overall pick in the draft, so like we're talking about a very similar tier of player here, and yeah, I can't unsee it. Everything they're good at and everything they struggle with, right? Like Wentz was a great creator. He was a good runner of the football in college too. I think he had a 700 yard, 7 touchdown season as a senior at North Dakota State. Maybe that was his junior year actually. Drake Maye kind of similar, where I think really good runner in college, and that will taper off a little bit in the NFL. Where Wentz was still effective, right, moving the chains with his legs. They occasionally would get him, ISO'd on like a read option type play where he kept it. Ultimately, I think their skill sets overlap quite a bit, and I know because of where Wentz is at right now, people are going to hate the comp, but I can't unsee it. The other one I'm going to throw at you really quick before we get out of here is Drew Lock. I'm stealing this from Trey. Producer Trey hit me with this pre-show, and it makes a lot of sense. I think when Drew Lock was coming into his final year of college, there was a lot of hype surrounding him. That gunslinger mentality, the ability to extend plays with his legs. I think that's kind of what people think. Like Drake Maye is kind of what people wanted Drew Lock to be, and it never materialized for Lock. His final year, he kind of, put up his best year of tape, and then ultimately fell to the second round of the draft. I see a lot of similarities there, so I wanted to tip my hat to Trey for coming up with a brilliant comp there.
Well, I'm gonna move him down in my rankings. Those are some brutal comps.
We
Damn, you
can't
can't
comp
give me
everyone
like
to
one
Hall of
upside
Famers,
comp?
Scott.
Just say Josh Allen. Come on.
Yeah,
Just say it.
I can't do it. Josh Allen's like 6'5", 240
One of
pounds. And
one. Yeah, I know.
yeah.
All right. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Stay tuned for coming up tomorrow, 105.
Oh man, we're moving.
Malik Neighbors.